Angry guy here. And today I want to discuss the reasons why the government regulating Google and Facebook is bad for the internet and social media overall. It's a topic that we don't discuss enough. And many of you might say, well, hey, Angry, look at what's happening right now. Isn't this a good thing? The answer is much more complicated than, a black and white situation. And I'm going to explain more of the reasoning in just a moment. So, the government regulating social media, a lot of people are increasingly becoming more and more open to the idea. Unfortunately, that's just not how regulation works. On the surface, it sounds like, well, this would be a good thing because then social media companies could no longer pick and choose what content they are allowed to show versus what content they cannot show. In theory, it sounds great, but in reality, that's not how it plays out. You see, if social media companies can no longer decide what content they will and will not allow on their platforms, then ultimately, guess who does decide that? The government. Okay? So that means that we will go from Facebook and YouTube deciding what you can and cannot post on their platforms to the government deciding what you can and cannot post on the internet. Okay? The startling effects of this means that it could potentially lead to websites being taken offline, if not instantly. Governments having back doors to Facebook and YouTube and other social media platforms. It would expand the reaches of the government in itself and basically require companies to comply with government regulations over their content and what content is available. So for example, while in theory it sounds great that, hey, Facebook and YouTube will have to, and Twitter will have to treat content equally, it only sounds that way until you realize that the government is going to roll out a set of their own standards on the kinds of content that is appropriate versus the kinds of content that is inappropriate. And companies that do not play ball can basically be shut down. All right? They could be banned from doing business in the United States. The web portal can go offline, and here's where things gets even more worrisome. At this point, with this much regulating power, the governments can essentially reach out to ISPs. They can reach out to the mediaries, like I'm trying to remember, like Fire. What the heck is that? I can't remember. The Cloudflare that works as an intermediary between many websites, and say, yeah, you basically need to turn this off right now. I'll give you a good example. Cloudflare, what they do is they actually speed up traffic on websites. I've used Cloudflare on my sites as well. And they speed up traffic. So for example, your sites will load faster. The thing is that Cloudflare can basically shut any site down that is using this. And to use Cloudflare, you basically have to update your domain name servers to Cloudflare name servers. So basically, you're giving them control over that domain. And I remember I think it was the CEO of Cloudflare. There was a website that he just didn't like, and he just woke up one morning, flipped the switch, and it was gone. And he went on to say that he doesn't think any company should have that kind of power. Okay? The frightening aspect of this, however, is that we are not, for regulation, addressing the issue of censorship. Oh, no. What we're doing is we're simply allowing the government to decide what can and cannot be censored. And a lot of people don't understand this. Jim says he just sent me a prototype. Oh, I'll check, bro. I will do my best to check it out ASAP. I've been so busy, but I'm so proud of you. Guys, we are basically going to see the government take control of the internet. The government will decide what you're allowed to say from what you're not allowed to say. And they can quietly take any website offline. Forget about getting a notification from YouTube that says, this content has been removed. In the case of regulating the internet, because this is not just regulating social media, it's regulating the internet, what ends up happening is they can not only decide what you can and cannot do, but they can also put additional taxes. So for example, when we use Facebook to call our friends, or we use Skype to call our friends, and we use these online services to communicate, typically we don't pay anything for them. For example, Facebook, we don't pay anything. It's our internet connection, right? Because of the way that they may reclassify these services, Facebook services, for example, could be reclassified as telecommunication services, which they kind of are, many of them are. Google services, telecommunication services. What happens if something is classified as telecommunication services? Well, that means that it has to adhere to guidelines set by the government. It also can limit innovation. One of the best examples is looking at how the internet has operated for a number of different years. There's been very little actual innovation. T-Mobile's doing some interesting things right now with cellular service, but look at the way that mobile broadband has been handled. All right, we're literally entering a phase now where your cell phone will be faster. Your cell phone will be faster than your home internet. Okay, guys, think about this. 5G is basically like 1 gigabit per second. That's ridiculously fast. All right, 1 gigabit per second on a cell phone. And right now we are struggling to hopefully see 200 gigabits at home. And that's like at the very end, and you've got to pay top dollar for that. So you're going to paying more for your home internet to get similar speeds as you're getting on your phone. And of course, there are going to be, you're going to say, well, there are data cap differences. There are. But we're talking about innovation and development. This could literally permeate to services like Google Hangouts going offline, making free Facebook calls, goodbye, making calls on Instagram, goodbye, or using Skype, goodbye. Or they're going to have to start charging you now because the government is going to want to tax them as well because they're now reclassified. And this can seriously hinder innovation. I don't have an easy answer for what's happening. And I'm not justifying censorship by social media companies. What I am saying, however, is that we are now in a very, very rough place. Because if the government begins regulating the internet, that's it, okay? All these new rules go into effect. They control the flow of information. Depending on who's in office, they can decide whether or not some sites stay up. They can control opinions. It is so intrusive that it's insane. And like I said, forget about getting a notice from Google or from YouTube saying that this video, goes against our practices. You're not going to get a notice from YouTube. You're going to get a letter in the mail from a government entity. Okay, imagine getting a letter in the mail from the NSA. Okay, and it probably won't go that high, but it'll be along those lines. All right. It'll be along the FCC, getting a letter in the mail from the FCC, who's now monitoring everything you do online. All right? It's a pretty rough situation. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that social media companies became biased. And as a result of becoming biased, they violated essentially an unspoken rule, which Ted Cruz pointed out, that we don't regulate you. And in return, you don't regulate the internet. Let me explain that again. We don't regulate you, and in turn, you don't regulate the internet. And what ended up happening was companies began regulating the internet. And you have companies that have the sole power to decide what happens or what doesn't. Literally individuals. The CEO of Cloudflare just pressed a button and an entire website was gone, just like that. And then he went on to say he doesn't think anyone should have that kind of power, where you can take virtually any website offline if you so choose. Here's one of the bigger dangers. Services, I don't know if Amazon uses Cloudflare, but there's a lot of giant sites that use it, for example. There's other services out there, but Cloudflare is evidently the largest, I think. Something happened recently where Cloudflare went down. And when Cloudflare went down, it took down something like, I don't remember if it was like 10% of the 10% of websites in the United States went down with it, or more, like 10 to 30%. Like a ton of the internet went down. When Cloudflare went down, a ton of the internet in the United States and maybe around the world went down as well. Okay? So if governments have the power to regulate, they can essentially just turn the internet off. I want you guys to understand, they can just turn the internet off. They can turn certain portions of the internet off. Because once the FCC has control of the internet, they have broad control, broad regulation. Not only can they control these things, they can decide, they can control pricing. So the pricing that companies offer for their services on the web, those become regulated now and overseen by the FCC. The government can then begin deciding what you can and cannot charge, and you'll begin noticing your bill creeping up. The opportunities like that are presented on the internet, where someone can build a business out of nothing, literally out of thin air, and use a set of protocols to achieve various things, that will vanish. And instead, we end up with a situation where the government basically decides what you can and cannot do and what technological advancements you can and cannot make. And if they violate those regulations, then they can basically shut you down. So they can they can shut down any website, they can shut down any service, they can shut down any communication. There's a guy named William Reich that I wrote a paper on when I was in grad school about, and he was actually I believe a psychiatrist. I think he was a medical doctor. I forget if he was a psychiatrist or a psychologist, just one or the other. But anyway, what he did was he came up with this concept of a different type of energy and harnessing this energy to improve physiological and cognitive function. I think cognitive was in there. And he he built these machines, and people would get into them, and he turned them on, and he would, like, this energy would basically heal them. He actually knew Albert Einstein, and he reached out to Albert Einstein back in those days. They wrote letters. It was early in the 19th century, or 20th century, so 1900s. And he reached out to Albert Einstein, and Albert Einstein actually did an investigation, and he looked into this type of energy that William Reich had proposed. And basically Einstein said that Reich, he actually got very upset with Reich because he said that it lacked a lot of research. He didn't do a lot of research. He didn't research it properly. Like, Einstein really gave it a good hard look over, and Einstein was like, "Are you crazy? There's like nothing here. It's like just writings of a man who has not done his research and is essentially daydreaming." But anyway, regardless of this, William Reich had written books about this and ultimately wasn't hurting anyone. However, the government caught wind of this and they imprisoned him. And then, in what would turn into America's greatest act of censorship, they began going around and confiscating every book he had written regarding his machine and the concept of using this machine and using this specific energy to help the human body, and destroyed them, burning tons and tons of books. This was the worst, if I recall, the very worst act of censorship in the United States ever. They put him in prison where I think his health maybe even deteriorated. It was an unbelievable situation. And there was no possible reason for having done this. Now, here's where things get more interesting about the situation. They basically called it a perversion of society, okay? And as a result of that, and basically calling it socially unacceptable standards. He did not break the laws. He did not encourage anything extraordinarily radical. I'm just being very honest with you, okay? None of his patients, I mean, everything was pretty much gravy, but it went against the ideals of a specific group of people. We ended up with an outrage mob, and as a result of the outrage mob, we had a giant book burning in the 20th century. 20th century, we had a huge, in the middle of the 20th century, roughly, I believe, we had a huge book burning. The government went around, confiscated all those books, and burnt them. What do you think will happen now with the internet? They don't like something, they can just remove it from the internet and any traces of it. And anyone who posts it back onto the internet, they can face fines or imprisonment. This is the direction that we're headed in, which is why I say the government regulating Google, Facebook, and social media is not a good thing. Because while on the surface, it sounds like a great thing because these companies have been picking and choosing what information you are allowed to communicate versus what you are not. And there's obvious bias that Mark Zuckerberg talked about when he sat before Congress. I don't think that this is the way forward. We need to find some form of middle ground, okay? We honestly do. And I think we can do that without regulating the internet. For example, when MAD, which is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, wanted to, get the age raised, they complained, but governments did not want to overstep this. I don't know if many of you don't know this, but as far as I'm aware, there is no federal minimum drinking age in the United States. There's no minimum drinking age in the US, if I recall. All right, or maybe there wasn't. Maybe it was 18 at one point, but I don't think there is anymore. What actually has happened is drinking age was set by the states, and every state could decide, how old you have to be to drink. So one state could be 16, another state could be 18, 17, and they all had their own rules about how drinking could happen in their states. Well, because of political pressure from organizations like MAD, what the government ultimately did was they looked at how they could persuade states to raise the minimum drinking age, and they basically threatened to withdraw or withhold highway funding to states that did not raise the minimum drinking age to 21. In this means, it wasn't a form of regulation, but they did provide a major incentive to do this. So I'm not necessarily justifying this, and my personal take on the minimum drinking age is something completely different, but I'm just giving you an example. How should we go about handling the situation? We shouldn't go about by regulation. I'm just being very honest, because you cannot trust the government to regulate. You can't. You give the government that kind of power, and that power ultimately corrupts. All right? I'm just being very honest with you guys. If we want to have a continued steady and free and open internet, we have to find better ways to deal with these issues. For example, the lawsuit from PragerU right now is actually versus YouTube. That could actually result in major changes, okay, for the way that companies behave, because these are companies that are presenting themselves as public forums, and they also receive public money and public grants, okay? So if it's found that they are not truly public forums, then that would mean that they are violating their agreement to form a public forum. Because in a public forum, you can have various ideas. It's a place for the exchange of various ideas. If you only have one specific group of ideas that are allowed there, then it's not a public forum. It's like a club for specific people, okay, where you can be thrown out if you don't adhere to that. So as a result of that, Google and Facebook and other social media companies, many of them based in San Francisco, they could lose access to government funding. They could lose access to land rights. I think they can lose access to a lot of things because, for example, you advocated that you're building that this is to build a public forum. You're a public forum company, and so. And we basically allocated this land to you specifically for this purpose, but that was under false pretense because you're not a public forum. You're a private company that picks and chooses what people can say and do, right? As a result of that, it's going to become increasingly difficult for them to justify what they're doing, and this could result in numerous changes. So basically, they could lose access to government funding, to government tax breaks, and various other things. And I think that's probably the best way to compared to social media companies, right? So, but it can have dramatic effects on the way the web actually works, okay? Dramatic effects on the way the web actually works. And it can strip us of many of our civil liberties and our ability to communicate effectively with one another. Guys, we are entering a massive recession, and if you want to safeguard your wealth, if you want to actually ensure that your finances are not going to fly out the window, you should be investing in cryptocurrency, specifically crap coins right now, so that when you invest, you will be able to turn $100 into $100,000, okay? Because many cryptocurrencies will increase by even 10,000 to 100,000 times in value. So to learn how to do this and various other things regarding cryptocurrency, you can take a course on cryptomoney.academy. We have courses on mastering crap coins, how initial coin offerings work, how blockchain works, how to take profits perfectly, how to become crypto rich, how to become a crypto millionaire, how to choose coins that are going to increase by 100 times or more, how to convert cryptocurrencies without having to without the trouble of having to use an exchange, how to withdraw crypto to cash quickly. So if you've got some cryptocurrency and you want to convert it to cash quickly and withdraw it from any ATM, just go to an ATM and withdraw it. And we teach you how to do that as well. Yes, you can do that with lots of normal debit cards rapidly, okay? We teach you how to do that and so much more. We're also teach you how to time the crypto market and make massive profit. So basically the specific months, holidays, the times, what affects the crypto market, what has to go up and down, how to time the crypto market and understand that market behavior. We also have how to take profits from cryptocurrency and not lose your entire investment, which is something a lot of people do because they basically keep expecting it to go higher and higher, and it doesn't. We have how to get free cryptocurrency, and you can get tons of free cryptocurrency for free using this method without mining or having to pay for it. And the better part of this is that you're going to get it before it's even goes on sale. So before the ICO even happens, you already have tons of this cryptocurrency. Before all of these things happen, you have tons of cryptocurrency, and you're selling this cryptocurrency before anyone else. It's actually quite amazing. So basically, a lot of cryptos sell now on what we call on initial exchange offerings. And as a result, they only put out a few coins a day. And the few coins they put out every day for sale, they get snatched up quickly. So they might be selling their coins for $1, but if you want to get some of these coins, they're being sold for $10, all right? And you have and a lot of people become impulsive buyers, especially when there's a lot of hype around these things. So you got a bunch of cryptocurrency for free, and now the IEO is happening, initial exchange offering, and the coins are going for $1 a piece, but you're seeing let's say 500 or 1,000 of them, and that you got for free, and they're selling them for $1 a piece, but they're averaging about $10 a piece because our $5 a piece because they're so hard to get. All right. So from literally that, all those free coins you have now, you can now take take your 500 coins, and if they're going for like $5 a piece, you can sell them off and make a really great profit. That's $2,500. $2,500 from coins you didn't pay for, you didn't mine for them, you didn't do anything. They just sent those coins to you. What's his name? Tim has been using this course, and he's just been racking up tons and tons of free crypto. What happened with me during the last crypto boom is I just literally would wake up in the morning and find hundreds of dollars in my wallet, in my crypto wallets, because they would just be sending me tons and tons of free crypto. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So we have that course for you. If you don't understand how Ethereum works, we have a Mastering the Ethereum Blockchain course. We also have how to choose and invest in all coins that are going to increase by that 10 times to 1,000 times or more. And of course, we have how to buy Bitcoins anonymously, because if you don't know how to buy Bitcoins, you're going to have a lot of trouble entering the crypto market, because you have to buy Bitcoins so that you can buy altcoins. We have day trading cryptocurrencies, an introduction to it, and with this course, you can take $100 and make a $30 profit on that for in a single day. Once you learn how to effectively do that, and that comes out to about $900 a month. Imagine taking a single $100 and turning that single $100 into $900 a month in profit by pulling in about $30 a day. That's, for some people are like, well, I don't need it. Let me tell you something. I need it. Okay, I need it. I won't scoff at the extra $900 a month. No, sir. Now, and if you're one of those people who just you feel like I don't know much about crypto. I don't know where to start. I wouldn't know what to do. Got you covered. Take the Cryptocurrency 101 course, Introduction to Cryptocurrency. What I've done is I've worked through this course to remove the barriers that confuse a lot of people when they first start investing in crypto, and basically get you to the point where you feel comfortable and you can begin moving on, investing, buying, selling, and working in the crypto space more effectively. So if you don't know anything about crypto, then definitely take the Introduction to Cryptocurrency course, because that's going to give you the foundation that you need to actually begin working with crypto. And the thing about that course is that a lot of people think, well, I can just go Google this information. Googling information is not the same thing as taking a course designed to teach you these things, because a lot of the information is either outdated or it's directing you to purchase a specific coin. Like, for example, in ICO, putting out their own coin, they'll put out an article talking about how cryptocurrency works, but they're not teaching you about blockchain. They're teaching you about their crypto and trying to push you to purchase their crypto. So you end up thinking that the way that cryptocurrency works is based around the way their cryptocurrency works, which is absolutely correct, because cryptocurrency is so versatile and so different. Many cryptocurrencies are extraordinarily different. So you have to understand the very basics before you can start messing around with anything else. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for you today, and I want to know what you think, if you agree that the regulation of social media by the government is not a good thing. And while I don't agree with censorship, I don't believe that the government should be regulating social media, because it ultimately allows them to regulate the internet. And then instead of private companies picking and choosing what we can and cannot say online, now governments will pick and choose from what we can and cannot say online. So let me know what your opinion is on this in the chat. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Eric's in the chat. He says, angry, sorry I've been away. Cancer treatment, glad you're well. I'm glad that you're doing better, bro. Glad to see that you're alive, guys. Definitely shout out to, prayers for Eric, and just glad to see these faces. Eric's been with me for such a long time. Nolan Baptiste is in the chat. He says, angry, hey, what's up, man? Sorry I've been away for a while because I've been working, but this is going to be a good stream. What's going on, bro? Yeah, dude, I mean, I'm glad to see Nolan. I tell you, when I see old faces popping up, it's always nice. Ruffy says, time to UNA install Chrome. Bro, Brave is lit. The Brave browser is lit. I'm just going to be real. Brave is lit. I should be using Brave more. Brave is lit, all right? Because it's based on a Chrome architecture, but it does a much better job of, preventing ads and security. Nature of the chat, he says, I don't agree with all that said, but okay. Nature says that he's pointing out to A. Jones, and he's like, I don't agree with everything that he said, but he is being silenced. Exactly. He is silent. It's absolutely ridiculous. The problem is that, you think what we're doing here will prevent, you think regulation will prevent someone from A. Jones from being censored, but no, that just means that instead of the social media company censoring him, now the government could censor him. They can decide what they want. And here's the thing: you have radicalism at the left and at the right, and we need to admit to that, which is why I talked about why labels are such a problem. Okay, people jump onto labels, they hook themselves to labels, and they don't really think about the fact that every group has a set of people that have very different views and and their views are much more louder, right? And you end up going along with it or getting are being associated with it because you're a part of that group. So yeah, at the end of the day, left and right, there really should be no left and right. There should only be the middle, okay? Because we should all want what's best for our country, what's best for our future, what's best for ourselves, of course, what's best for our children. Anyway, let me know what you think about this. If you agree that the government should stop the government regulating Google and Facebook and social media in general is bad for the internet. Also, if you want to buy a course and start investing because the recession is almost here, check out cryptomoney.academy. Links in the description of the video. Start stocking up on crypto, start learning more, start doing what you need to do and get your business done. Take the Mastering Craft Points course because right now we are out of time and I've said that for a number of years. All right? Anyway, love God, get money, and cheers.